Force, Luke.
Sometimes truth isn't good enough.
I feel the need for speed.
Ray, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes!
Because it's their time. Their time. Up there. Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
One of these times I'll remember to shut everything off the phone and have it all set up. That way I can, check in on the chat and everything. But anyways, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Winter Wolf here. Lots to cover tonight. We're going to bring Kingsley in because we've got a mixed bag of stuff. I got some of the intel wrong on the show schedule for today. There was, in fact, not a double episode of Daredevil Born Again. I don't know where I picked that up from. I blame the producers of the show. I don't know what else to say. There was only one episode. So we're going to fill up a bunch of time with that. But then Kingsley is a special favor to a friend. Wanted to take a peek at the Tron Ares trailer and get out some thoughts on that. He may have to revoke a certain membership card of mine. He was very disappointed to get some news on my Tron relationship. We'll talk about that. And then I have some general movie news. And I know I have some general movie news because of the whole Snow White Minecraft situations that evolved over the last weekend since we last did our show. A couple of other things. Get some big shows coming up for when Daredevil's done. So I don't think we won't have any shortage of mini topics to go after we get the big show discussion out of the way for Daredevil Born Again. I think we got enough time to handle this business. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're pretty good. But first, we have to talk about the thing we've been talking about for a month now, and that is Daredevil Born Again, episode 8. Now, this is only a 9-episode season, so this is the one that sets up the finale.
9, not 10. Not 10.
9. Yep,
Whoops.
Another one we got wrong. But before we proceed, why don't you go ahead and hit that little sound you like to make?
I'm doing it more. Ooh, dude, I always misline my camera. Like the camera's here, so like the hand gesture zone.
Yeah,
very narrow. It's very narrow.
Very narrow view.
Yeah, dude. Let's let's jump right into Daredevil. I see you. I'm actually a little disappointed here. I see you went with Bullseye as your caption. I see that. I guess now that I see the hyphen up close and personal, I guess that makes more sense because I was going to be like Bullseye, like he thought this episode really nailed the premise or really delivered, or because the character was in the episode. Because besides the character being in the episode, I didn't really think it nailed anything except
I couldn't do the other one because I couldn't do the high-pitched voice that would go along with it, like or how to write it that way, but it was trying to be crispy.
Yeah, dude, that could have worked. That was actually pretty disgusting. We'll definitely get to that because that's kind of a push point for a few of the supporting characters as they're going to move into the finale, obviously with BB and Police Commissioner Gala. So that'll have implications there. My tagline: "We're babysitting chaos," dude. I feel like that's what this show has become to me. To jump right into our discussion, this is 2 episodes in a row that I feel like it kind of flubs something. There's just something not right here in what's going on.
I disagree.
Okay,
I think this episode was masterfully done.
Okay. Let's get your general impressions of the whole thing first. I'll go into some of the stuff why I disagree, and then maybe we'll pick apart some scenes because it did. I'll give it credit; it was paced fine. The pacing's never a problem with this show. There's just something almost intangibly wrong with it for me for the last 2.
I mean, you love setup and payoff, and this whole episode was nothing but setup and payoff throughout the whole thing, and to bring stuff back from earlier episodes. Like recasting lines, reusing other people's words against them. It was the setup and payoff. It is how you write a promise and then you deliver on that promise. The cinematography and the editing on this was masterfully done. The use of color to identify characters was outstanding. And then seeing how 2 relationships and the 2 people that it's living their parallel lives are going, where both of them have hit that point where they have gone full back to who they were. And yes, this episode was masterfully done.
Dude, definitely has some parts that work. I'm not going to sit here and say that this has devolved into Secret Invasion. I'm not like, I want to be very clear on that. I think that would be completely disingenuous of me to say that it's gone so far off the rails that it's irredeemable, or that there's no enjoyment to be taken out of the show. I think for me, a particular character has now become so unlikable that I'm having trouble refocusing after she's involved in the show. I'm talking about the girlfriend. I'm talking about Heather, right? Every time this person appears now, I don't like anything that she has to say. I find her reactions to things are clunky. They're poorly emoted. Like they don't seem to carry any kind of weight when she says things. Like case in point example, like our first scene with her in this episode, she's working at the breakfast table on her laptop typing. She's got no facial expressions. There's no drama being played out, no body language. And then she just abruptly stops and she's like, I killed that guy. Do you have any idea what it feels like? And I'm like, what? Like, no, like, no, it's just wrong. And then that whole conversation she has with him is so disingenuously broken that I don't know, as a guy that works in behavioral health specifically, you know what I mean? It's hard for me to kind of gauge how this character is supposed to respond and has responded. Like, here's the case in point, right? She jumps right into the whole, you don't know how it feels thing. And we get that she doesn't know he's Daredevil. We know that. So yeah. she can make that statement, right? But she then, like 2 sentences later, is talking about how Daredevil and Muse are the same. And then he logically replies, and I think they're two different animals here. And she just arbitrarily shoots it down. But I'm like, any adult with an IQ over 50, with her limited, not us, like we're barely over 50, but like, I mean, in their world, right? Any adult with an IQ over room temperature can see that these two characters have behaved differently, because Daredevil's not a new thing in this world. He already had a reputation as a street level hero. That's why a lot of people wanted him to come back. And Muse tried to kill you. You know what I mean?
What she's getting at with that is that they're two people of the same motivation. They hide their face and what they do to do what they need to do. One's to kill people and the other one's to save people. And she thinks that it's going into that undeveloped child hero fantasy or villain fantasy that they want to live, and they have to use the mask to hide from society to do it.
That's what she said, but that's so objectively childlike and simple for a psychiatrist to say that I can't stomach that. Because if those two characters arrive at the same fork in the road, the fork being to wear the mask, and then one decides to wear it to help people and the other decides it to hurt people, that's objectively quantifiably different people at that point. And a psychiatrist of all people should know that, you know? And so she's already, I don't like that already. I get what they're trying to do, like you said, I really do. But it doesn't work. And then she follows that up in this same scene where Murdoch points out, well, you know, Muse had cut you to bleeding out and left you to die, right? And Daredevil saved you. And then, dude, I'm going to say it, dude. I haven't done this in a few shows, but this just irked me the wrong way. She tried to girl boss the next line. She's like, I saved me. Like, bitch, you shot this dude after the other beat the crap out of him for 10 minutes and almost killed him. You didn't save you. You were dying on the floor. Half of the blood in the office is yours. So that all just like nails right down the chalkboard.
But from her perspective, you have to go from her perspective as the person who pulled the trigger that actually put him down. It's more of the defiant tone
of the statement. Like if there was a certain weakness there that called back to her initial statement of you don't know what it felt like, you can't be both. You can't be boldly defiant about the action you took. And then after having set it all up with, you don't know how it feels like, I don't know what to do. I can't believe I did that. You can't have them both. You got to pick a lane. You have to pick a character track.
You could have both emotions. You could have both emotions. Yes, you could definitely. Were you to be dead set on a point and someone says something against your point and you're like, but this does this and I do this every day. So you could have both emotions and it can still have the point that you're trying to get. Now, she is coming from a blindsided and she's starting to listen to the propaganda of how people in masks are bad. And that is the big push. all of the
He threw it in her
newspapers
face.
has that on there where
Yeah.
people in masks are bad. They have a special task force to take care of this, or
Mhm.
Goon Squad, if you want to call them that.
I have a point on
And-
that too for later.
Yeah. And the thing is that the part that she really misses that everyone's wearing a mask. I mean, even Kingpin is technically wearing a mask. He's wearing his mayor mask, but that's not who he is. He's hiding behind the mask of the mayor. He's really still the Kingpin, just in the office. And you see a lot of that in this episode. I mean, you saw the growth of it. And this one, he finally comes full out, like, I'm still the head boss around here.
Yeah. No, I think, and that all that calls back nicely in concept to what the show was really about, which was about two guys that had thought they had moved past their respective roles. You know, one is the vigilante and one is the career, kingpin criminal. They're now back to their roots 100% for both. And they both put the suits on literally, in these last two episodes. There's no escaping that. There was just something about that entire first segment that just kind of,
I will agree that she is a weak actress, and it might be her delivery, but the argument itself has merit, and it is one of the catalysts that needs to be to push things forward. One of the things I did find out in my research today is that this episode is one of the ones that they completely scrapped and redid. So this is one of the newer the redo episode, just like episode 1 was. And how it kind of links back to the episode 1 is you can definitely see that and understand that this is one of the reshoots, rewrites that they did.
Sure. I mean, we can piggyback right on your no chemistry point, or you mentioned that. I'll take that point about that actress and go with the no chemistry. There's been minimal effective chemistry between her, I think, and the Matt Murdock character.
I think she is the weakest character, and I believe it's because it's the weakest actress on screen. I mean, she's nowhere near the level of BB or Vanessa.
No. And I was going to say, and I'm not even just talking about the two big dogs on the show, Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, who get all the flowers all the time about their professionalism and their interest in the roles. I actually have a separate note down here on BB, who I think that character is a much stronger performer just in what they give her to work with in the limited amount. But the Heather character,
watching her in this episode, you could definitely see that BB is a very strong actress.
She's definitely good. I think that there was some clunkiness again, and I think maybe getting this show out in 9 episodes instead of the 18 that they planned, maybe this is where this happens. But remember in the last episode, Sycophant Dan basically threatened her, what I mean, about pulling stories or retracting the whole Mayor Garbage story or whatever it was. But in this story, in this episode, they address it for 5 seconds. And then it's drinks and dance floor again. And that's even before she meets the police commissioner.
And they fixed it perfectly when she left the police commissioner. She covered everything of that. It's time to go back to work. And then she's that ditzy shots.
She did. But again, I think my issue is we rip right past all of the stuff that should be the second guessing and the trying to figure out what to do part. Like if you're BB and you see Dan again at this party, right? How are you automatically best buds with him again after he threatened your life last week?
Because she is his in. He is her in to the mayor's office.
He's her in.
Yeah.
But could we get some reflection on, I mean, maybe that's the point, is that there's just not enough time to develop that character to have that moment where she's trying to debate, is it worth having him as the in? Like, what does the BB report mean to me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess if she was a main character, that'd be the kind of connective tissue scene we'd get. But she doesn't rank high enough to have that. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, and it might be because it is being rushed because they went from 18 to 9 episodes, literally half the runtime. But she's playing it well because she mentions like, "You think we're cool," and then he brings it up and kind of apologize. But then she goes back into it because she needs that into the mayor's office.
The access.
And then the whole conversation with the commissioner ties it all together beautifully in a tight bow.
That part was effectively done because they had staged that entire thing, of course, to happen after a logical chain of events where, dirty cops have their moment where, like, and I'm going to talk about the task force in a minute here. They rough up graphically a journalist who snuck a couple of pictures inside the Pride. There was.
Why did he use a flash, and why was that the loudest camera shutter sound ever.
Bro, that camera shutter was louder than taking like a pipe to another pipe under your house to bang on it.
Yes.
And the flash might have been a spotlight. It's the flash was brighter than the side mounted lights on cop cars, like the searchlights. It was pretty damn light to protect your access. I guess so. I
Absolutely.
I see you, Pepe, buddy. How you doing? I get that point, but that scene I thought with BB and Commissioner Gala was good. They're both in compromised, weak positions where they had to decide to do the right thing. So I guess that works. I guess, Commissioner Gallo is probably on that same character level as BB. Like he's there. He's a low ranking supporting role, but he does push the plot forward. And I thought so that part was effective. And she did have a great line, like you said, all right, well, it was nice talking to you, but I got to get back to work.
But the underlining thing of that, she's like, everything I write is not under my name.
Right.
And it was right after he dropped
other name.
Yeah, he tried to drop that ace card, like, he was the lead suspect in your uncle's death. And she's like, right. I know. Like, she's been playing a game this whole time, and it's getting her closer and closer so she can find the truth and help bring down the mayor and help burying him. So she needs to play the game, and that's why she's doing what she's doing. That's why she blew off the whole thing, and they start talking about shots, and like her attitude changed immediately when she turned around. Yeah, she has to play the role to get to where she needs to be.
I think for me, what's happening here is, and this is just a uniquely a me situation. I think what happened with this show in these last 2 episodes is I got lulled into an enjoyment complacency where it felt enough like Penguin, where the story for me was moving week to week, and I was okay with what I was being given. I think what happened in these last 2 for me is I forgot this wasn't a 22 episode serial, and then I had time for all the side quests and side characters to be arced out a little bit more. Maybe that's what happened. Like I said, it's not like this didn't fall into like Acolyte Secret Invasion territory, not by a stretch. And maybe it was just too much of the psychiatrist girlfriend role that was just starting to irk me the wrong way.
Because she did have a prominent role in this. Like, she's one of the catalysts for the plot in this episode.
Right. I think maybe it was a little bit of that there. Oh wait, that was the Dan thing. I'm gonna check that off the list real quick. Let's talk about the Kingpin and his wife. What'd you think of all of that little relationship kind of being sealed in blood?
That was amazing. Because first off, you're having this where you're having these 2 conversations going on at the same time, doing the whole parallel shooting between Matt and
they love that gimmick
Fisk.
On this show. They do.
Because that's the whole point of this story is their parallel lives. And then they add in the third wheel in this one, which I really liked as well, because they did it in such a different way. So we'll get to that in a second, but I love this part. So first off, you're coming down. He takes her to the dock. The whole thing was about was it Red Hook? They call it
Project Red Hook is the dock revitalization civic project that Fisk is behind, that he's trying to get funded, which we'll see later on.
And it was the same thing about Froggy's case, where he's talking about he got Dumb Benny, which is his character's name. It's actually titled that in the credits, Dumb Benny.
I've seen
it. He got down at Red Hook, and that's where he got in trouble at. But he had more information. That's why they stashed him, and then that's what ultimately led to Froggy's death. So he brings her to Red Hook, and then he takes her down to the lair. First off, you have the the bunny in the forest painting where it's covered in the Kingpin's blood from his wedding where he gets shot.
Yep.
Then they come along, and then they're down there, and then you have Adam screaming. And then Kingpin is just completely emotional. And one of the great things they did is that he was talking about, like, every time I see him, every time I see his hands, I get uncontrollable. And they shot his hands like he was looking for a hammer at the time. Like,
I thought it was happening.
Yeah, he was. And then he was there talking with Vanessa, and like they do a shot of the table and they show a key, but they don't show what else is on the table.
And I went back to look for that because I'm like, did I miss that? And if you had the subtitles on, there's a point in their dialogue where it just says object clunks on table.
Oh.
And that was it. And that's clearly him dropping the piece on the table. But I was looking for that same establishing shot of the table where it's like there's his gun on one side and the key on the other side. Decide this guy's fate. Like, nah, bro.
Nope, it was just the key.
Invisibly dropped the gun on you.
Yeah, and then he pretty much gives her a choice.
Yep.
And he's talking like his forgiveness and how much he means to her. And then she reaches down and grabs an item. And then Adam's over there. He's like, I'll disappear. I'll just leave. It was all a mistake. It will never happen again. And he's like, I won't say a thing. And all of a sudden she just turns and like, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I can just tell. But the part that gets me is like, it's 2 to the chest. And then that one cold-blooded shot at the end. Okay. That headshot.
Listen, that made my list, right? It made the good side of my list and the bad side, because I thought the same thing. Like, dude, she hit him with 2 in the chest, 1 in the head, and then I'm like, but was that absolutely necessary in this situation to like have the fake CGI blood splatter head jerk? I'm like, that scene felt like we needed to punch up some violence in this episode for whatever reason, and I don't know that I needed it there. But it looked hilarious. I'll give him that. It was some savage brutality. I'll give him that. It was
awesome. And then the way he acted afterwards, like you could see in her eyes, and something the Kingpin notices about people is like he could tell when that bloodlust is starting to come up. So he wisely comes up and takes the gun from her, and she was a little hesitant to give it up. And then he plunks it back on the table, and he tells her, "I will never leave you again."
Dropped the bag and worked it a couple times just to be sure. She looked pretty spry for for an older lady. I might not have just put that back on the table. But dude, can we talk about Adam for a second? Not dead, not dead from the ass kicking. Oh, he's dead now.
Yeah, he's dead now. And he said that I didn't kill him like I promised you.
Yeah. Like I'm surprised that he survived the beating. And maybe Fisk told her about the beating, and that's why she double tapped him and then finished him off. Because like, hey, this dude comes back more often than Ghostface. Like maybe that was her angle. I don't know. Like, nah, fuck that guy. Like, okay, Vanessa's not here to fuck around.
And then we could cut back to. Yes, I do believe it was her first kill. I completely agree with you. And then she just enjoyed it.
She ordered at least 1 other ones.
Yeah, she ordered it, and they also confirmed that she did help with the setup for Luca.
Right. Oh, yeah, that was a great line. She had what was the line there?
He punk came something for the throne.
Yeah, a punk playing for the throne. It was pathetic and hard to watch. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So she's definitely Queen Pin. I mean, and that's fine. That's who that character is supposed to be, and she's pretty good at it. I like that character in the role. She's like we said before, she's no Kirsten Milotti from the Penguin. The character isn't dynamic enough to give you that kind of, I think, affection for her.
And I don't think you need it with her because her
she's not a psycho, right?
Yeah.
She's ice water in the veins, businesswoman, mafia queen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Exactly.
She's not psycho killer named supervillain, Penguin character. So they're 2 different people.
Yeah, 2 different people, but it's 2 different styles, I would say, and both of them work for the characters that they played in the Penguin, and then of course Vanessa here in Daredevil. But then you go back to the ball, and she's talking to the doctor, and she's like, "When can we schedule you for your next session?" or something like that. And she goes, "I think we worked it all out. We buried our issues."
Yeah, you caught that line, did you? Yeah, we buried him in the bay. Off the side of our boat.
Yeah, he's not coming back. No, the issues are dead and gone.
I think Adam had his run. I think that's about it on the Adam front. While we're talking about Vanessa though, because this is one of those things that like I had to watch it a couple times. I feel like I miss details because I'm always looking for like the next thing to happen. That's going to be like the big thing, right? So Dumb Benny was Vanessa's guy because Fisk was away and she was running shit.
No. Dumb Benny was breaking into a warehouse and he saw something when he broke into the warehouse. So they were arresting him on breaking and entering. But then he was going to tell the cops in court he was going to become state evidence about what he saw. Okay.
So why kill Foggy for that then and not kill Benny? Like why not just actually hunt him down and get him?
Because
any lawyer can defend the guy.
If he took a deposition, he can still enter the deposition in as evidence.
That's true. That's true. Okay. All right. So that connects enough for me.
And
Because that whole bar scene, I was like, wait a minute. We
yeah,
figured out that because he was already drinking and then again, this was set up and payoff, like you said. So once they executed on that, I was like, okay, that's cool. That Foggy was already drinking that specific kind of bourbon, or I think it was bourbon or whiskey.
when they win, and that was set up in the other Daredevil,
right?
The Netflix
and they set that up in
series.
episode 1 this year. That was the drink that they were about that Foggy knocked back right before he took the call and went outside because he knew he was gonna win whatever aspect of the case was about to happen.
Yeah, he only drinks that type of whiskey when he's celebrating.
Right. So Matt figured that out, and that's what put him on. That's what triggered him to actually go see Bullseye in jail.
Go see Poindexter,
he wasn't going to. Right. So yeah, do we want to talk about Bullseye since that's your tagline?
Yeah, let's talk about Bullseye because I love how it came back around. Plus, I love the Bullseye character, the way Poindexter portrays Bullseye. The actor in this Bullseye, I think, is probably the best one. Hats off to Colin Farrell for what he tried to do with Bullseye in the Daredevil movie, but I think this guy has the essence of what Bullseye is. And like it starts off at the beginning Bullseye starts off at the very beginning of the episode, and they have this inverted rose, and you can see that it kind of turns around, which plays into the end, which I'll describe here in a second. And then it zooms out and it's like, why are we looking at this rose listening to this song? And then it zooms out and then it's like you see that they're a prison, then you see the prison bars, and it's like, oh, are we going to see Poindexter? And then we did, and then they moved him and they threw him into general population with his hands both secured,
still restrained.
And then he calls for to have Matt Murdock come and talk to him. Why he's there, he uses his call or something like that, whatever, just to.
He just has the right to get counsel. That could have been the lawyer he had.
Something to try to save his life because he knows he's going to get killed in Gen Pop, which we take this back to season 2 of Daredevil, where Kingpin did the exact same thing to the Punisher when he told him about the guy, but he had him fight his way out of all the inmates.
That was awesome.
So you have this same type of drawback to the characters that they were in the Netflix series. I mean, all of this is just set up and pay off, and how they pay homage back to the way these characters were in the original Netflix series is just outstanding. And then the other thing that I really liked about him is that you always know when you're in his vision or his point of view, because it becomes blue, and then the overall is a little bit cooler. The temperature of the shot is a little bit cooler, but when it's like directly his vision, it's blue. And you have that when he first looks at all the people in Gen Pop, he's seeing all of his targets in front of him. So he's seeing that icy view where I don't miss, which is the exact contrast to Matt Murdock, where he's always seen in red in a world on fire. Poindexter sees a world that's frozen. So he can everyone's not moving, even though that they are. So he has the perfect shot for perfect angle.
And they bring that back at the very end scene too, of course, when Bullseye takes this shot, that goes awry.
And they have it in the infirmary scene.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, because when Matt shows up, he bangs his head on the thing after they argue a little bit.
Let's talk about this whole exchange, right? Because this is some important ass stuff. And I see Pape's comment there. If you want to bring that up, it's just that flick on Rorschach. Yeah, exactly. You think I'm trapped in here with you? Yeah, and then they ripped on that for Batman Begins with the your practice. That whole line, basically the same thing. Great call. I like the Matt Murdock talking to Bullseye in the just in the interrogation room, like you said, where he's Bullseye's hands are still restrained. You can see that he's restrained effectively. Like if he could get out of that, he would, and he hasn't. Right.
Yep.
And they have a little bit of a back and forth. Matt's like, did Vanessa have you kill Foggy? He's holding out because he knows the only chip he has is that information to get him out of Gen Pop, where he can't defend himself and he's getting his ass kicked. Because it was that great line of, can you hear that? That's the sound of the jungle. Like there's he described his entire living situation in a line, and he knows the only way to get back to like the secured isolation is Matt Murdock maybe putting in a word for him. So they have their back and forth, but Murdock basically tells him to go screw before he smashes his head into the table a few times and then tells the guard on the way in, I don't know, dude banged his head on the table.
So here's my question.
which was to get him back into psychiatric isolation, was to get him back off the block.
It was that it, or was it to get him into the infirmary, or did he know that he loosened his tooth because he said he'll only tell him if he's on the outside? Because he asked him to defend him in his appeal.
I think what Murdoch was going for was to bang him up and say this dude was having self-harm, which would automatically get him out of Gen Pop and back into isolation. The infirmary was an unintended detour, which now makes Matt Murdock culpable in the deaths of the two guys, the guard and the doctor. So that was that was on my checklist over here. I'm like, he doesn't know any of that happened yet, because obviously Bullseye makes his move to get out. Murdoch's already at the ball. The ending happens, and we already get the phone call to Buck from one of the other guards at the prison, like, hey, you wanted an update? He's gone. He's on, but we know he's going to find Fisk, or he's going to find Vanessa or whatever. But like, everybody there probably didn't know that yet, and Murdoch would have had no way of knowing that.
Unless he knew that he loosened his tooth.
I think that's a byproduct of getting smashed into the table, because I can't imagine Daredevil would have equipped him to break out.
Which I will have my argument for that in a second.
Okay. All right. So we're cruising at light speed through the end of this episode now, where Bullseye's going to make his move. He gets that great kill that's on the thumbnail that you guys have seen. He's got a broken tooth. He's basically holding it. A guard's like in front of him, trying to undo the leg restraints. And I thought to myself at that point, why did you guys unrestrain his hands in this situation? Why was this necessary for this exam? So that's
his hands were still like locked to it.
Why bother?
Because he undid it after
maximum restraint. You had him in maximum restraint. Here's the other thing. When they're moving him out of isolation into Gen Pop, they had 12 guys with riot shields with them. The fuck were these guys? Just saying. They don't go in the infirmary. They didn't wait outside the door. Nah. Dude walks outside, borrows a uniform, takes an ID card, gets on the bus, gets on the ferry, rolls out. Okay, sure. Nobody on the bus recognized him. Notorious supervillain killer in the prison. Nobody knew him. Pulled his hat down. That's what happened.
Yep.
No, that was it. Works
in the movies.
Well, that's what Bullseye probably
and
said.
And because he had a badge that scanned.
The badge scan, which is fine. You can beat the one guy holding the reader, but like, he talked to a guy on the bus. Maybe you don't know everybody in your building. Maybe you're the new guy. I don't know. Nobody noticed you. There wasn't a fucking alarm went off 8 seconds after the fucking bodies were found. Really? We had to suspend a lot of disbelief on that shit. And whatever. I'm just pointing out the funniness of some of that stuff. Yeah. So anyways, he his broken tooth through the guy's eye, which was pretty sick. Which
I did research on, and there's physics to prove that you can actually do that. The farthest cherry seed to ever be shot out of someone's mouth is 96 feet. Wow. To be able to do that needs a high velocity to do it. And it also didn't go through the guy's head. It went through his eye, which is soft. And with that much force to shoot something 96 feet could go through someone's eye. And he also has comic book reference in this, where he did it 3 times in the comic book.
He did the tooth spit into an eye?
Into it. One of them went through the middle of the guy's head, but there were 2 others that went through the eye.
Cool. They do, but now I'm not even sure that they knew that happened, but maybe they did. I think there are at least a few. I mean, they're probably not.
The assistant writer for this episode was the one who cited all of the research on Reddit.
Oh, cool. All right, so they did have that in person, that in-house subject matter expert.
Yes.
To use the industry term. Cool. I'm with it. See, I like that. I like those callbacks when somebody else can tell me, hey, this happened in one of the books. It was actually kind of clever. You know what I mean? I can take that. But so yeah, Bullseye's on his way to the gala. How he knew Kingpin was there, I don't know. I guess he found out.
Yeah, and it was probably all over the place. It was probably on the news. They had the TV on, stuff like that. It was a big event. Yeah.
So these guys got iPads in prison in this state. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. But like when he killed the guards, it all went blue again. As soon as he put the tooth between his teeth and he smiled, the whole screen kind of went blue. And then it was all blue while he made his kills, and then he got loose and off he went.
Well, so let's talk Gala scene, because there's a lot of stuff. There's like 3 subplots in the Gala scene. We already talked about one. That was Gallo and BB, the police commissioner and BB.
Mhm.
We kind of checked that off. We talked briefly about Dan and BB, about their relationship, how he's the access to the mayor's office. So that whole charade or relationship is moving forward. There was a pretty good line, kind of insidious, between Dan and Sheila. Sheila's the campaign manager turned top advisor, where he says something about, I thought we weren't going to be on the same page, but I don't think that's going to be a problem anymore. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
because now he's deputy mayor of communication.
And it's kind of fucking terrifying, let's be honest, because, you know, it's I think this dude's becoming Kingpin Jr. I think that's something there. I think it's being implied. I think and it's kind of fun to see that. I don't think it's going to come to fruition, because I think she'll survive, I think. But the big things that are coming up here, of course, are Daredevil and Heather are there, and their relationship is wrecked at this point. There's talking about she's accusing him of backing away and being absent and this and that.
And the best part of that is that he stopped listening to her and to eavesdrop on another conversation.
Dude, he does it like 3 times. He does it because he gets the swordsman coming out. He's overhearing the blonde lady. I think her name was Artemis. He's eavesdropping on that conversation. And then he gets a third guy coming out of the Daredevil, out of Kingpin's office after the swordsman, like a minute later.
Yeah.
So 3 times in the conversation, dude. If the girl's telling you you're not listening, you should probably listen for at least 10 seconds. You got to throw an in there somewhere.
Just to do the shot, like when they first come into the Gala, not Kingpin and Vanessa, but when they come in for the scene, it would look like it was supposed to be a oneer, because it was on the campaign manager and then Daniel, and then it followed Daniel to BB, and then it left them to Artemis, who's looking for her husband who's missing, and she was the one who confronted. She was the one who confronted Kingpin the last time they had one of those dinners, and it was like, you might be the mayor, but we're the ones who run this city.
Yeah, we're the ones who decide who eats.
That was it. Yep. And now her husband's missing, who might have had a visit from the task force.
who might have been eaten, actually. You know what I mean? Who knows? But those were the 3 people that kind of punked Kingpin in that exchange. It was her, Lalo from Better Call Saul. You know him as the swordsman on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other dude who came out later, the older white guy with the light hair. He made a remark about, I'll have my my manager reach out to your CFO. Or some shit. Was like,
he said that to the swordsman.
Oh yeah, he did. He said that to the swordsman, but he said there was another line.
Yeah, he's like, I'm looking forward to your donation.
Yes.
And he came out with that real sad look on his face,
because he was losing like 50 mil to back up the Harbor project or the other Red Hook project. So there's a lot going on there. The Kingpin's entrance in the all white suit with Vanessa in the red dress, cinematic AF. Loved it. It was a great shot. It was like half slow mo with like the old New York kind of music playing. They do their little dance. I'm like, okay, this is some comic book shit. I can get into this. That was a good part.
So yeah, you have them come out, which is they came out in the exact same way at their wedding in season 3.
Oh, that's right.
This whole gala is pretty much them having their second wedding, the reception they never had because Kingpin got shot.
Yeah.
In it.
Nice.
So this was a callback to that, like their entrance, the first dance, which was later, because remember he was standing alone after seeing that, and Matt was making his way to him, and then Vanessa saw it, like her eyes got big, and then the spotlight hit him, and then it was like, it's time for the first dance.
Now there was a few seconds of cuckpin that went on there when he noticed Matt coming at him. Kingpin reaches up behind him and grabs Buck by like the chest, like, he's like, calm down, dude. You're 6'6", 380. I think you can stand toe to toe for a few minutes, and all your guys have guns.
And this is a blind man. He's not in his.
and dude, and where you are, he can't throw hands at you. Yeah. It's the only place in New York he can't throw hands at you.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just thought that was kind of funny, but then it broke into like all the cool stuff. Like you said, they got their dance on. Then we get into the Heather and the Matt exchange, that relationship, like I said, going nowhere. And then of course, Matt goes full torpedo, like at the Kingpin on the dance floor, like basically towing Heather along. Oh, you're going to have to lead until he maneuvers his way over where they are. And then they do the, mind if I cut in? Classic.
Yeah. It was
classic move.
that whole scene there was perfect, and I'm going to explain to you why.
Lay it on me, brother. It's all yours.
So one, Kingpin noticed Matt eavesdropping on his conversations. And then he's sitting there and he's telling her he's a monster. He's like, well, she's like, what are we going to do? Like, she's like finally starting to listen to him a little bit. He's like, but you're going to have to lead. And he takes his cane and drops it. You hear this
on the waiter's tray.
On the waiter's tray. Like, I'm sorry, sir, we don't serve this. And he's like, you're going to have to lead. And they go out there dancing. And then you have the Kingpin there and he's doing his stupid dad moves, but it was like taunting him, saying, I'm going to kill you. And then he turns his back. And he speaks so low that only Matt can hear him. And he's having a conversation with him without Matt being able to respond, of course. Yeah. But it was like
that. As you're up to your old tricks, devil, or something like that. There was that.
He's like, I told you there would be consequences.
Yes. Yeah. But he called him devil. That's all he had to say.
Devil. And then he bumps in. He's like, "Oh, excuse me, mind if I cut in?" And he talks to Vanessa because he was listening on the side first, and she's like, "There's something I need to tell you," and that's when everything clicked. It wasn't the Kingpin who had Froggy killed; it was Vanessa. Right. And so that's when he confronts her. And then they had their fight while you had the two people who were kind of who stood out. You have Vanessa in her red dress and then the blind man. And then you have the two people in white standing together. And now he's leaving his date / girlfriend with the person he just called a monster less than a minute ago. I know. And now he's talking to Vanessa.
Take care of herself.
But the conversation between and the conversation between him and Vanessa was like spot on. He's like, did you have Froggy tail? He's like, does Heather know you're Daredevil? So that confirmed to me that Heather knows that he's Daredevil as well. I didn't know she knew. I didn't know if Kingpin, Vanessa, yeah. Vanessa, I didn't know if Vanessa knew, Vanessa was like, does Heather know that you're Daredevil? Yeah. And then she's like, all of a sudden he just kind of stops. Like he's like not listening to Vanessa now. And they did this great shot where they tightened the whole room onto Matt. They like, it was a wide shot and it tightened straight onto him. Yep. And then it like moved up. It found where Bullseye was because he heard that putting a round in the chamber. And then he's there sensing everything. Now, a lot of people I saw online today said, how does he know where he's going to shoot? And that's the thing they don't understand about Daredevil. Daredevil sees the whole room. Yep. With sound, like when you say a sound and it bounces off of something, he can see where it's bouncing off of. So if he made the slightest, right. And so he knows where the gun's aiming. And that's how he knew where the bullet was going to come. And that's why something in his next move, and this is the part that really upset the Oracle, is why did he jump in front of the bullet for Kingpin?
Because superhero.
No, that's actually two other things.
It's mostly superhero.
It's two lines that were said earlier in this. In this episode, where that setup and payoff come.
Was it the Heather motivation thing?
It started with that. That was one where they were just kids trying to, prove their point, and he was put into the same category as Muse, and that's what started his whole fuse for the whole day. He's like, no, I'm better than Muse, and now I'm going to prove it to you. And then 2 was when he went to go see Poindexter, and Poindexter had the greatest line. He goes, "Isn't that what good guys do? Defend their worst enemy." Yeah, and that's exactly what he did. He defended his worst enemy because he's the good guy. And then he's on the floor bleeding. And then it goes back to the inverted shot, completely red, just like how we started off with the blue rose. So it started with blue and ended with red. It was so well done.
That actually was a great still shot. I almost considered using that for the thumbnail, where it's all red and he's on his back, but he would be looking at the bottom of your screen because it's inverted, like you said. There's a level of artistry to the show that no matter what I think of any of the plots, episode to episode, it's unquestionably a professional effort that's been done. The same way we talked about shows like Andor, that we've most recently talked about the Penguin, everywhere from costuming to like the set direction and just how they created the aesthetic for their show. Mm-hmm. This is very comic booky when they want it to be. And it's interesting. I think that they doubled down on these moments being the thing that they applied the comic book appearance to, because maybe they knew that no matter what they tried to do with the action scenes or the wire foo or the swinging around like Batman, Spider-Man crap, that they'd never capture that like they would if it was a movie and had 300 mil behind it. So
Yeah.
they were like, we need to be really slick with some of these visuals on the ground. And I think it's paid off, like you said, because I think most of these episodes, we've come away with at least one visual cue where we're like, dude, that's pretty cool. I mean, going all the way back to the first episode, where at the end of the episode, it's the Kingpin in like the white light looking down on Matt, and he's standing there in a red light, like bathing in it, looking up at the Kingpin, like, okay, this shit's about to be back on.
Yeah.
You know, like they've done shit like this for like 8 episodes now. You know, so there's a cool factor to the show that's apparent, even if the story for some of us, and you're eating it up, which is great. I love when we're not on the same page for beat. It makes for a much better chat. But I think this episode, it ended on a banger of a strong note that leaves you up in the air. You need to see episode 9 now.
Yes.
You have to. You can't get off the train.
And just all the callbacks, like you have the one lady who's looking for her husband who threatened Fisk earlier at another function like this, and then you have the swordsman where the swordsman's like, is that a threat? He's like, no, it's not a threat.
Boom.
It's a warning. And
Now,
that's the same thing he said to him at that same event. It's like, he's like, are you threatening me? And he was like, no, it's a warning.
What I loved about that little part right there is I'm pretty sure in real life, D'Onofrio is not 4.5 feet taller than that actor. So I'm guessing they must have had that guy kneeling on a box to create that angle.
They had him stand on an apple box to make him look, because
I knew there was a box involved.
Yeah, because D'Onofrio was 6'4". The real Kingpin sits 6'6", and that guy measures in at 5'10". So to make that thing, they probably had D'Onofrio stand on an apple box to give that more menacing presence.
I didn't think D'Onofrio was that tall. Okay, cool. Yeah. Then that's good. But you need, like you said, you need to throw a physical effect in there to actually create that towering thing that like the Kingpin would have for like a regular New York socialite kind of guy. You know, because 6'4" to 5, like I'm 5'10". I'm not intimidated by 6'4". That's not that big. But like 6'9", you know, you gotta put on your realism pants at that point. That would be intimidating.
Yeah,
I like that.
The realization moment was when I stood next to the bid show. I'm like, man, I'm tiny.
Yeah, I haven't got that with pro basketball players, but I've shaken hands with Jason Momoa at a con before. That dude's huge.
Yeah,
like, he's not necessarily huge this way, but like the dude's huge. You get humbled real quick when you're around big people.
I've met the bid show and I've met Braun Strowman, and I'm just like, man, I am a tiny dude.
That'll do it too. But the other thing I had on the episode here, because we kind of glossed over the dirty cops kind of taking their shot at being dirty cops and telling the commission to go screw. You know, do you know who we work for, kind of thing. You know,
we don't work for you. We don't answer to you, so there's nothing you can do to us.
You know, I'm kind of bummed though that we haven't seen this team take down any vigilantes. Like I would have liked to have seen some of that. We've been told they're badasses. They had to they took credit for the Muse killing. Didn't do it. They deep fried, the journalist's hand. I mean, you could have done that. That guy looked kind of thin. You know, like not impressed. And there were 12 of them that rolled up on the commissioner, which was kind of cool. But I'm like, yeah, you're still the commissioner though, and there's still like 55,000 other New York cops though. Mayor or no mayor, yeah. But again, it's a comic show. You gotta let some shit slide. But I'm like, I would have liked to have seen, like even like on the BB report, like a mashup or a montage of the task force responding to different locations and either apprehending or killing rando vigilantes. And it didn't need to be anybody, like Marvel's J-list vigilantes that never make the movies or shows or have their own books. It could have just been them pulling crappy masks off of people, or one guy tries to jump off a building and they let him do it and he dies. I don't know, but like a quick cut up of them actually being who they are instead of just being personal security at a dance.
They could go arrest Kick-Ass or something.
Saying, but they probably couldn't handle Kick-Ass though. You know what I mean? But I wanted, that's kind of like that'll be on my list of, I wish there was more of that. I wish there was more of the Punisher. We got none of that as predicted by either of us, unless he shows up in the big finale. Maybe there's some shooting in the finale, but I don't see it going that way.
My new prediction is I think we're going to have a huge cliffhanger at the end of episode 9 because we all know that season 2 has been greenlit, and I think they're going for the full 18 on that one again.
Ooh, interesting. Greenlit and expanded by double?
Yeah.
That's ballsy. That's a heck of an increase in spending. I don't know if I go that far. I mean, we know they're greenlit. That's in the books. That's like a matter of, like, you just look that up. Dude, a cliffhanger after he gets shot at the end of the episode, though? What do you do for episode 9?
No, I'm talking about episode 9 is going to end on a huge cliffhanger to feed into episode 2.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is what I'm saying. But if Murdoch's already shot now, what do I do in episode 9? Like, he's just dreaming for an episode, or, like, what do we do?
No, you're still going to have the culmination of this, but it's going to something new will happen. Will be set into motion. Yeah. That's going to make people have to wait 3 years to see the next one.
I get that, and I would hate that if it took that long. I'm just saying that, like, usually the hero getting shot would be the cliffhanger. Like when the Borg took Picard 1,000 years ago and hit you with the resistance is futile, that was the cliffhanger for the season. Like, that was it. They just went away for months. They didn't give you that one more episode to see what happened.
Yeah,
like, that was
the line here, and no further.
That was in the movie. That wasn't the show. Important distinction. One was good, one was not. Any which way. Dude, I think we got to jump into that. We got some other Tron stuff we got to do because we need to get into that. But that was Daredevil episode 8. You guys should go check that out. We warned you.
Definitely check it out. It is a masterpiece in cinematography.
Oh, that was an important qualifier right there. But yeah, definitely go check out the show. But without any further ado, King Z, why don't you mention why we're going to talk real quick about Tron Ares?
All right. So we all know that Tron is a huge staple in the nerddom fan realm. It is one of the first films to ever do full CGI. So it was a huge moving forward piece in movie making, and it has a huge following with a great fan base, to include one of my friends. We'll just call him, well, I won't do that again to him, but he wanted to see us react to the trailer. So we're going to watch the trailer for the third movie in the franchise, Tron Ares.
And that's coming out this year, right? That's a 2025 release?
October 10th this year.
Interesting.
All right, let's get that first look going.
Unit 12, acknowledging dispatch. Already in pursuit.
Tron bites in the real world.
I'm looking for something.
I was just going to say that.
Something I do not understand.
Kaiju.
It's a battle tank.
Ready? Because there's no going back.
Okay.
This film is not yet rated.
Original music by 9 Inch Nails. I haven't heard that name in a hot minute. I didn't know they were still a thing, but it's not my chosen genre. But all right, you're the Tron guys. I had to break your heart earlier.
Yeah, for all of y'all who do watch our show, our fellow Winter Wolf here has never seen Tron nor Tron Legacy or played a game, so he doesn't even know the whole thing about the light cycles.
But no, because I've been on the Tron coaster at Disney, so I have been on a blue Tron cycle before at night. I have done that. All right. What I do know of Tron is that I think it's the kind of movie that everybody looks back fondly on, that whose effects don't hold up well because it's 1,000 years old. I think people rosy glow it a lot. Because if I remember Tron Legacy when that came out a few years ago, I don't remember that blowing anybody away, box office wise. Never. Not that I'm opposed to it. And that was going to be my proposal here. I was going to use the appellate process and say, hey, before the movie comes out, I can watch, I have months to watch the first one and the second one. I'm not going back to find a game that King Z played on like an old Pentium X3 or whatever they were. That shit.
Oh no, this wasn't home machines. This was arcade machines.
Was it a racer or a shooter?
Both.
Get out of here.
You played disc and you had the racer, and then you also shot a tank at those big battle tanks, those M's. That M thing you saw is a battle tank.
That sounds sick. I've never even seen one of those in an arcade.
Yeah, me and my brother, my older brother at this, we used to save all our money for the week, and then we would go to the arcade and we would drop most of it playing Tron.
Dude, that's crazy that I've never seen that game before, because I've spent my time in arcades, fighting games mainly, but I'm aware of games. That's crazy. I'll have to go look for some YouTube footage of that later.
Yeah. To understand Tron, you have to understand the beginning of it, where it was a regular human that was digitized and put into the cyber realm. Where,
Grid, right?
Huh?
It's called the Grid. Is that
yes.
That's the in-game world? Like I say, I know a little bit of this and that.
Yeah. And they were trying to bring down the master processor, that he was in the mainframe. Now, this is back when mainframe computers were the primary computers. Like home computers were not really a thing yet. You had the Commodore VIC-28. You had the Commodore 64. I don't even think the first Tandy was made yet. So, or the first Apple, mind you. So they went into the mainframe and they were battling this computer that was built by Jeff Bridges' competitor, and he used a security program that he created and he was fighting alongside of, named Tron. And Tron was finding, in the real world, was finding stuff that this other program was doing wrong. And he kind of got digitized as he was being like they were trying to come and kill him, and he kind of got digitized and it escaped that killing, but now he's stuck in a world he doesn't know. But the thing, he realized that because he was a user in the computer world, he had kind of some special gifts that very,
very Neo in the Matrix kind of thing.
Yeah. And then the Legacy is the sequel that came out, I think, almost 20 years later.
Yep.
And at this point, Jeff Bridges' character kind of left the real world and just went back into the digital world. And his son stumbles on like his old arcade, Finn Arcade, and he goes and follows him, and he brings the first program back from the computer world into the real world.
So it's kind of it's an inverse. Okay. Yeah. I mean, sounds interesting enough. And if it's got those sci-fi elements of, virtual reality and what's real and what isn't, and that all that stuff, those tropes are right up my alley. I put this, for me growing up, it was always Tron and Dune. They were just things that I never was exposed to by older cousins. My dad wasn't into either of those particular properties, so they were just around, and I know what they are. Like I could, I get the blue Tron cycle thing. It's been parodied in things like Family Guy, for decades. I mean, I get all that stuff too, and I will have to look into the movies. But tell me about the trailer. I know Tron's usual flavor is the light blue, the kind of the crystal color that we use here on the channel a lot. Is Tron Ares being red? We're talking this is all villains all the time? Where's the blue stuff? What do you make of this?
Blue's always been representative of the good programs, and red has always been representative of the evil programs. Like in Legacy, Jeff Bridges was cloned by the computers, and then he became the new master program. So technically they were fighting against himself.
Got it.
Yeah. So red was always the villains. So in this, you have the villains coming out of the computer world into the real world.
Okay. I mean, that looks
and
wild.
Ares, it means war. So it's Tron War.
Right.
So
that's what I figured. I think a lot of people at this point probably don't even know that Tron's a character and not the name of the game world.
Yeah. Tron is a character.
Right. What did you think of the effects? I thought it was an interesting blend of what I would consider dated on purpose, because some of it is very blocky and rectangular looking, but also very sleek when it needed to be, with obvious, computer enhancements, like with the light trails, the light blade off of the back of the cycle was pretty sick. So I did like some of that stuff there. I hope it's not all shot at night. Like if it's trying to do some cyberpunk thing where like it's just dark all the time and then you see all the red. I don't know. That might get a little quick. But what do you I'm going to shut up. You tell me what you thought about it.
No, it looked great. Like seeing the Tron cycles or the light cycles in in real life, like in a real world, was pretty sick. And how it cut that cop car in half.
Yeah,
that was pretty sick. And then seeing the battle tank come through the buildings.
I thought it was a kaiju. I was like, okay, it's pretty tall. I didn't know there was no bottom part.
Yeah. It's like a giant M. If you look at the old graph, it's like a giant M, and the legs can rotate and come close together and like crush what's below it, and then it can fire down. So
sick.
Yeah, I'm thinking it looks pretty sick. I'm ready to see what the story is. Of course, we got 6 months to wait to see what that is.
On story and just with the people you saw, do we recognize any of these people? Or any of these characters' legacy that you can tell?
I believe
I don't know any of them.
The one at the end, I think, is Flynn's son, who's kind of carrying the story. And then, of course, we heard Jeff Bridges' voice.
Yeah, I picked up on that as well. Pape says the flying tank there with the battled image, direct call out to the original Tron. Cool. Then if they're doing throwbacks, you guys are going to be happy.
Because one of the things is when Flynn found out he has powers, he put one bat together and then controlled it. And it had damage. Like one of the feet was just like hanging there, and then it just eventually fell off when he ran into the wall as he's trying to pilot it.
Cool. All right, dude. Then listen, it sounds interesting enough. It's on our list of 2025 sequels. I mean, this isn't a surprise, that we saw a trailer for this. We were talking about this in January. I think it was on the giant collage that we had,
All right.
There's just one more sequel.
Yeah. I mean, this movie, this year's shaping up to be a pretty good movie years.
Well, we'll see. We got a couple of bumps. There's some bumps in the road potentially coming through.
I think some of them that we think are going to be bad is going to be going to be pretty good.
I'm hoping. I hope Superman holds up. I hope Thunderbolts delivers something that isn't completely laughable.
Dude, look at the Cinecon trailer. I think Thunderbolts might be pretty cool.
Okay, we'll see what happens. I mean,
at least the villain.
They had to adjust down the estimates on Brave New World like multiple times because that movie ended up being a mess. I don't know that there's any kind of hype for Thunderbolts. Nobody that I talked to in real life is talking about it, which is interesting because we were talking about Brave New World for obvious reasons. But who knows? I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But Ares is a long ways away, and there's a lot of movies in between here and now. I might have to do a standalone Minecraft review because we're short on time now. I just wanted to point out the box office that the King does know is she stuff.
Thank you.
Minecraft ended up cooking. Snow White had to be revised down and is going to end up short of the Marvels in terms of disaster dollars. So, I mean, who saw that coming?
We're going to run a little over because I got something to say about the Minecraft movie. I was there and I'm chilling at work. I already finished like most of my tasks and I started going through reels like I usually do. And one of them came up and I think it puts a really nice light on the Minecraft movie. Mm-hmm. So there was this kid who had a untreatable brain cancer. And he was given that talk where he doesn't have years to live. He has weeks to live. Yeah. And Minecraft was his favorite movie. The people at Minecraft heard about this and gave him a pre-showing of it, a solo showing of it, where he actually got to sit with some of the actors and watch the Minecraft movie a month before release, something they didn't have to do. And then he got to do a video call with Jack Black and Jason Momoa for it too. So for them to do that for a kid, because if they said no or didn't hear about it and they released on time, he didn't make it. He passed away 10 days after seeing the movie.
That's wild, man. I hate to see a little kid go. I'm glad he got to see the movie. I'll say this on the movie. I've seen a lot of negativity out there on the movie. I disagree with most of it handily. I took a 9-year-old and 4 or 5 of his friends. They all loved it. They all loved the game. There was a lot of good callbacks to the game in there. Every one of these kids I saw said it was almost 100% lore accurate, which I thought was wild because I'm like, if you guys get fucking Minecraft right, you can get Superman right. That's all I'm saying. It ended up making big bank. I think the estimates were what for the weekend, like 300 million. You know, we're getting sequel talk already, which is obvious because you don't pass up the opportunity to go back to that well. And just as like a 30-second review, it's simple Shrek. It's like you can go as a parent and laugh at enough jokes that aren't necessarily adult humor. There's no innuendo in it, but there's enough adult, like, you know, dad jokes in there, especially some really bad puns that are funny. You know, you'll laugh. Jack Black doesn't quite cross that line into like a very annoying as he sometimes can do. The Jason Momoa character is a washed up 80s video game champion, not at all supposed to be Dr. Disrespect at all. He plays well with some of the shit he says and some of his gags. He has pretty good chemistry with Jack Black as well. Like they're a good buddy group for a movie like that. The weaker parts of the movie were really the main human leads, the kids. There wasn't enough for them to do. I can see where maybe they got tacked on by like studio notes where they were like, hey, Jack Black can't be the main character in this. We need kids to have that entry character to go along the ride with. And I'm like, I don't think they did. You know what I mean? Because it might have just been better if it was just Jack Black and Jason Momoa's old 80s gamer gets sucked into the game. That might have been fine. But anyways, it was good. Lots of kids that I brought to the thing, their parents talking about going back. It cleaned up. Snow White did, and I'm going to tag those two things together just as like the final saying that remember who your movie is for.
Yep.
Make the movie
Definitely.
for those people. Start there. Make the movie for those people and make it good, because then not bleed out, because that's a negative thing. Like the butterfly effect is that it expands into people like me that will go and then come back and tell other people like King Z and say, hey, that if you and the wife are bored, you know, this weekend, and you got some bonus tickets on your Star Pass reward, go see Minecraft. It was all right. You'll probably enjoy it. You know?
Yeah, word of mouth is much better than any other type of advertising. And that was one of the things we always have to remember as writers is you have to write to your audience. You can't write to try to bring people in who are not interested. You have to write to the audience that will watch it.
Right. We've said this just real quick off that point. If they hired you and I to adapt a Danielle Steel trashy romance novel, the last thing we're going to do, that's what I'm saying. We would turn it down because we're not a-holes and we have respect for like the target audience. But if they held us at gunpoint to do it, the last thing I would do would be like, well, if we just put the name Danielle Steel on it, it's going to get all her readers automatically. But you know what we need? We need more guys like us. So we need some car chases and we need a shootout. We need some Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, Tom Cruise jumping off the plane and landing in a helicopter scene. So no, you don't need that. You need to read like 10 of her books, get a feel for the tropes and conventions that her readers expect, and then fucking deliver those. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all there is. Minecraft did that.
All right. One more quick thing. If you want to pull up that secret category.
Oh, uh-oh. And Peg left.
So you are the Winter Wolf. But what we're trying to bring here, and a news article that was brought to my attention right before we came on.
I have been cloned. That's in the news, though.
Did you download it? Okay, yeah. Go with it.
Yeah.
But we're bringing Direwolves.
Yes, we are.
Direwolves are back. They recreated Direwolves with like breed Eden somehow, and I kind of want one.
Dude, you do until they're full grown. And then they look more like the wolves in the background picture of our background right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dude, it's wild that we have the technology to do this. I'm torn on it. On the one hand, I'm like, that's really cool. And it's even cooler that it's George Martin that has it, and it's Peter Jackson that owns the Iron Throne. I think he bought it at an auction at Sotheby's and had these guys over with the wolves and took pictures with them on the throne. That's kind of sick. But we have like 9,000 movies, including one coming out this summer, about why this is a really bad fucking idea. That's all I'm saying.
They straight Jurassic Park some Direwolves.
Saying. I mean, wolves probably a little bit easier to manage than velociraptors and T-Rexes, but do you want to find out? Do you really want to be the one to find out? George R. R. Martin, can't you just write the book?
Do you know their names?
I do, and I forgot them. The female is Khaleesi, and I can't remember the other two, and I'm pissed that I can't remember.
Romulus and Remus.
Oh, Romulus and Remus, the wolves. That's right.
Yep, the wolves that created Rome.
That's right. I'd heard that. I read them in the article. Or I think I heard them I think the dude in the picture with Martin there, I think was on the Joe Rogan Experience super recently, like after the big public reveal. So I did know those names, and they had a female that they named Khaleesi. I'm like, okay, I mean,
Yeah.
could have picked another Roman name, but whatever.
We need another white one and just name it Ghost.
And that was the other thing I saw in like the sub article. I'm like, we couldn't get Kit Harington in on this and have him go pet Ghost finally. Like, you dick. You know, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? They are cute though, I'll give them that. But when they get fully grown and like they're like 5.5 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh 280 pounds, just saying.
Yeah. So I apologize for everyone for running long. I just wanted to get this out there. I think this was a awesome thing. I think it's pretty cool, and plus I want one.
Until they multiply Gremlin style, dude. Until they multiply Gremlin style, and we're fucked because we probably can't handle this kind of nonsense. These guys can barely handle the cuteness. Look at them. It's crazy. All right, dude. Get us out of here with no profound goodbyes. Bye, pups. Bye.
Well, see ya.